Masechet Pesachim, Daf 86, and we plan to complete the seventh perek with this daf. So the first major topic is an opinion of Rav that says talks about roofs. Roofs in the olden days were flat, and they used them for lots of things to put out fruit to dry, and they would go up there and use it also for eating and gathering together. So the question is, are the roofs of Yerushalayim and the Bet HaMikdash, do they have the holiness of Yerushalayim and the Bet HaMikdash area themselves, right? Are they the same as the ground? Or since they're high up, they're their own domain, and they are not the same. And if it's not holy, then one may not eat the Korban Pesach up there on the roof, even though you're inside the walls of Yerushalayim. Or Kodshei Kodashim, if you want to eat them in the Azara, can you eat it on the roof of one of the chambers in the Azara? So Rav says, no, we're going to challenge him from 6 sources. And then we'll see the next Mishnah talks about eating it in 2 groups that are in one room. And then we'll end off with a couple of fun stories and some recommendations on how to tip a waiter. Okay. So Amar Rav, Gagin va'aliyot lo nitkadishu. So Rav's opinion is that roofs are upper stories are not sanctified. You got to be inside on the ground level. Okay, Ini, hold on, is that true? Amar Rav mishum Rabbi Chiya, kezeta pischa v'halela paka igera. So Rabbi Chiya, early Amorah, says that we have to eat a kezayit of the Pesach. And he adds that the Hallel that they would sing on Pesach night would break the roofs. So first of all, it's just a beautiful image. You can relate to it. We can relate to it now. We saw a lot on when people were separated during coronavirus, and they all went outside and were singing Hallel. Right, Bet Torah did it in Israel. They did it, and like you had the whole city, singing all together. And when they sing loud enough, right, you can imagine what that's like. So if everybody's in Jerusalem and they're all singing Hallel at the same time, right, it was so powerful it broke the roofs. Okay, but the question for us is, look, it sounds like they were on the roof and they were singing Hallel, and weren't they eating Pesach then also up there? My love, right? Doesn't that mean that they were eating Korban Pesach and saying Hallel up on the roof? And that would mean that the roof is Kodesh. It does have the Kiddusha of the city of Jerusalem. I would challenge Rav. No, they ate downstairs on the first floor, and afterwards they went up and said Hallel on the roof so that they could join in with everybody else on their rooftops. Hold on, the last Mishnah in Masechet Pesachim says en maftirin, like maftir is that the end. We don't conclude after the Korban Pesach with afikomin, literally means dessert, right? No eating after the Korban Pesach. Rav explains that means you cannot go from one group and join another group, which was often done in Roman banquets. If you finished your banquet, you would go and hop over to another banquet and eat dessert there. And so you may not do that. So therefore, this is a problem because you said they're eating down on the first floor and then they're continuing up top, but you're not allowed to do that. You can't continue eating in a different spot. La kashya, kan b'sha'at achila, kan shelo b'sha'at achila. No, there's no problem. When the Mishnah and Rav was talking about, they were talking about during the time of eating. You can't start eating here and eat part of the meal here, eat part of the meal there, dessert there, right? So you'll have to eat in one place. But once you finished eating, then you can go and join another group and sing. So then they can go up to the roofs. The rooftop. So that's what they were talking about. All right, so that's not a challenge to Rav because they weren't eating Korban Pesach on the roof, they were only singing on the roof. So second challenge, Tashema Abasha Olomet Aliyat Bet Kodshei HaKodashim Hamura Mibet Kodshei HaKodashim. He says that the rooftop of the Holy of Holies is more holy than the Holy of itself. How so? Shebet Kodshei HaKodashim Kohen Gadol Nichnas Lo Pam Achat Bashana. Right, the inside where the Aron is, only the Kohen Gadol goes there once a year. So that's the holiest spot. The idea is that the more holy, the less accessible it is. But the upper story above the Kodesh Kodashim, someone goes there only once every 7 years. Some say twice every 7 years. Some say once every 50 years. Why would you go there? Only to check it out, to make sure that the roof is not leaking, it doesn't need any repairs. It wouldn't have to be a Kohen Gadol necessarily. It's not going for a ritual purpose. So his point is that, you see, that is even more holy than the Kodesh Kodashim because it's less accessible. We go there less often. But that's talking about an upper story. And yet, he says it has Kedusha. That's a challenge to Rav. Amar Rav Yosef, Mechal nekum v'neteb inish. Okay, I mean, I think we can answer another way. I think he was not, I don't know if he was saying that it's actually holy. It's just that it's less accessible. Okay, but he still uses the language of holiness. So it sounds like it does have some Kedusha. So Rav Yosef says, you can't ask a question from the sanctuary. Shane hechal dichtiv vayiten David l'shlomo beno atavnit haolam bet bata bet ganzaka va'aliyotav v'chadara v'penimit u'bet haparochet. Uchtiv hakol bichtav miyad Hashem alai hiskil. Regarding all the plans for the different areas of the Bet HaMikdash, David although David was not did not have the merit to build the Bet HaMikdash, he planned it and gave to his sons all the architectural plans for the rooms, the chambers, right, the ark, and everything was given from Hashem, who instructed him. And so therefore, the Bet HaMikdash construction is different, and you can't learn from the roof, the upper story of the Hechal, to any other chamber or any other house of Jerusalem. So that's exceptional. Yeah, that's holy, but it doesn't mean that anything else is holy. Okay, so Rav can just pass it off as an exception. All right, next question, challenge. Tashema, Hallel, this is a Mishnah in Maaser Sheni. Habeniyot b'kodesh u'petuchot lachol, tochan chol, v'gagotehen kodesh. So we have different chambers that are in the courtyard. And if they're built in the courtyard, which is Kodesh, but the entrance to it is from outside, then the inside of the courtyard is Chol, like where you enter from, but the rooftop is Kodesh. So look, there you go. The rooftops are holy. That's a challenge to Rav, who said rooftops are not holy. Rav Chisda answers, "B'shegagotem shavin lakarka azara." Now we're talking about that they're lower down, and actually the rooftop of the chamber is level with the courtyard itself. We can look at a picture here. This is an outline of the Bet HaMikdash. So this is the courtyard. This is the chaser. All this is holy. So if there was meat that was kodesh kodeshim like a chatat, the kohanim would have to eat it within this area. So that's for sure. Our previous question was on the Hechal, the rooftop of the Hechal. We said, okay, fine, that's an exception. But now we're asking about other chambers. For example, Lishkat Hagazit. Right, that's famous. That's where the Sanhedrin would sit. So physically, right, the inside of it, it's inside the courtyard. It overlaps with the courtyard. But the entrance is from outside. And so this Mishnah says that since the entrance is from outside, then the room, the interior of this room is considered chol. So in other words, you would not have that kedusha. You couldn't eat chatat in that area. However, the rooftop of this chamber is kodesh. So that's our question, right? It looks like the rooftop is kodesh, and the answer is that it's sunken down, which actually makes a lot of sense because right, all these are steps going up higher and higher. This is actually the top of the mountain. So the chambers that are on the side actually could be lower down, and so perhaps the rooftop of the Shkat HaGazit was more or less even with the rest of it. So that's why, even though it's a rooftop for that which is below, when you look on top, it doesn't look like a rooftop; it's just the floor. So that's how Rav Chisda solves it. However, the other way around, if something is built in the chol, but it's open to the kodesh, something like this, right? This is built in the chol, is Azat HaNashim. Azat HaNashim has the same status as the rest of Harabayit. And so yet, if you enter it from the Kodesh, right? So this has the opposite status, that the inside is considered Kodesh, because wherever you enter in from, the holiness continues from the entrance, but the rooftop is not. And if you think they're sunken down and the rooftop is the same level, well, then that goes all the way down, and that would actually be a tunnel underneath the chatzer. Rabbi Yochanan says the tunnels under Har HaBayit, even under the chased, are not holy. There were lots of tunnels down there. If you go to Har HaBayit today, or even on the southern side, you can actually see the entrance. You'd actually enter into a tunnel, and you'd come out like a subway station, right? On top of Har HaBayit would be like stairs that would go down. And so there's a whole network of tunnels underneath, and those are not kodesh. Even someone who is tameh would be able to walk around down there. So then why would the inside be kodesh if it's like a tunnel? Rabbi Yochanan was talking about tunnels that are open to Har HaBayit, to the general area, that is lower holiness. And this baraita is talking about when they're open to the courtyard itself. In other words, when the opening is somewhere over here and it goes down into a tunnel area, that will be kodesh. But if the opening is anywhere else, out here or out in the rest of Har HaBayit, those tunnels, since the opening is there, even if it goes under the kodesh, they would be chol. Oh, everything goes by the opening. All right, so that solves that problem. Well, continuing that part. Rabbi Yehuda said that the tunnels under the hechal, actually tunnels that even go under the hechal itself, and they are chol. Okay, same thing. That their opening is outside. So you might have an opening here, which is chol. Even if that tunnel goes underneath the hechal, it's okay. That's not considered kodesh. All right, good. Now, next question. We can see where we are in the questions. This is now question number 4. 5. Sorry. Okay. And so which is going to be about the tunnel. That baraita that we just quoted, the continuation of it says as follows: Tashema v'gago kodesh. The rooftop of the sanctuary of the Chal is kodesh. Okay, another challenge to Rav. Rav said that all the rooftops are not holy, and here you go. Here's a rooftop that is holy. But he's bera. Hold on, can that really mean what you said it means? Vakatani gagin halalu en ochlin sham kodshe kodashim ben shochatim sham kodshe kodashim kalim. There's another baraita. This is all the rooftops in the courtyard, the chambers there. You cannot eat kodshe kodashim there, and you cannot do shechita even of kodashim kalim. So you see, the rooftops are not considered holy. So what do you mean v'gago kodesh? Ela kasher gago kodesh. So we have an internal machloket here. It's not a problem for Rav. There's two different baraitot. Amar Rav Chama bar Gudia lo tan shete amot. Oh. The answer is that when it says Gago Kodesh, it doesn't have a status of Kodesh like the rest of the courtyard would. It has a low level of Kodesh. A low level only to the extent that we can store a couple of holy objects there. Which holy objects would they store there? These 2 amot, these cubit measuring sticks. These were 2 special cubit measuring sticks. What was so special about them? Here's a Mishnah in Masechet Kelim. It's fascinating. Shete amot haya b'Shushan habira. Okay, Shushan Habira, and is good for Purim, right? This is not talking about the capital of Persia, but rather one of the chambers in the Bet HaMikdash was called Shushan Habira. Since the Persians were the ones that permitted the Jews to rebuild the Bet HaMikdash, and they even helped them out and donated. So when they built the Bet HaMikdash, one of the chambers they built in Persian style, as a tribute and thank you to the Persians, to the Persian Empire. And that was known as Shushan Habira. Oh, it's really fascinating, especially for when reading the Megillah soon, because the Megillah itself makes a lot of connection between Shushan Habira, describes it as Chur, Karpas, Utchelet, Vadgaman, and all that. And it says you can only visit the king of Persia, Achashverosh, once a year on pain of death. And I think the Megillah is purposely giving those hints to connect the Shushan Habira with the Bet HaMikdash, maybe as a criticism. Hey, Jews, what are you doing having a party in Shushan Habira when you should be celebrating Pesach, right? All the events of Purim actually happen on Pesach. So there is definitely a close connection. And so this is very interesting to see that actually one of the chambers of the Beit HaMikdash was called Shushan Habira. Anyway, what's so special about Shushan Habira? That's where they would keep these two measuring sticks on that roof. Achat shel keren mizrachit tziponit, v'achat shel keren mizrachit deromit. One in the northeast corner, one in the southeast corner. Zo shel keren mizrachit tziponit hayta yetera al shel Moshe chasi etzba. One of these measuring sticks was a half of a finger breadth longer than the standard amah that the whole Torah uses that Moshe taught. And the other measuring stick was a half a finger longer than the other longer measuring stick. So since one was a half espa longer, the other one's a half espa longer than that, so the second one was a full espa longer than the standard Mosaic measuring stick. Why did they have these extra long measuring sticks in the Beit HaMikdash? ולמה היו אחת גדולה ואחת קטנה, שיהיו אמנים נוטלים בקטנה מחזירים בגדולה, כדי שלא יבואו לידי מעילה. When the construction workers came to build the Beit HaMikdash, they would measure with the shorter one, but deliver with the longer one. So if you say, I want 10 amot of brickwork. So when the person would come, the carpenter, the masonry guy would come. He would figure out his materials and his work based on a standard amah. But when he would deliver it, he would deliver that amah plus another etzbah for each one. Why? So that he wouldn't come to stealing, because you don't want to do, if you steal from Beit HaMikdash even a little bit, then you commit me'ilah. So they all wanted to be very, very sure that they didn't. So therefore, they would make sure to deliver a little bit more than was they actually got compensation for. And so in order to do that, they used this larger measuring stick. Okay, now why do you need two different measuring sticks? The shorter of the measuring sticks, that was only a half a espat longer, that was for gold and silver. Since that's very expensive, we want to really minimize the extra material that the smith is going to have to provide. But for building and bricks, that's not a big deal if he adds a full etzbah to it. So these measuring sticks themselves were used for the construction of Beit HaMikdash and holy objects, and they were stored on the rooftop of this Shushan Habira chamber. And that's why we call that chamber roof holy. But it's really a low-level holiness. It doesn't have the level of holiness of the floor of the courtyard. And so Rav was able to answer that question. Lastly, last question on Rav is from our very Mishnah, Tenan, Hachalonot ve'obi hachoma kilifnim. We said that, let's say you're sitting in the room eating Korban Pesach and you stick a bone out the window. Well, if it goes all the way out the window, it's no good. But if it's still within the width of the window jamb, that's fine. And also the width of the wall itself is like inside. So now the windows might be low down. They might go all the way down to the floor. So that makes sense that the window space, the jamb of the window should be like the floor. We're talking about a wall. The wall ends up on the roof, and yet it says that it's holy like the inside. So there you go. Here's a proof that part of the roof is in fact holy because it's high up. So, but Rav can answer, we can maybe it's talking about a low wall around the Temple Mount. There was a high wall, but there was also a lower wall that was a rampart to keep it strong. And that's in Echa, right? We say that we mourn over the rampart and the wall. That's two different things. It's talking about the wall and the low wall. So when we say that the width of the wall is like inside, we're talking about this low wall, not a high wall that would be the same as a roof. And so there you go. We had 6 challenges to Rav, but I was able to answer all of them, or we were able to answer all of them for Rav. And so therefore, according to Rav, rooftops are not holy. You cannot eat the Korban Pesach on rooftops. All right, next Mishnah, we're going to see, talk about even having 2 groups eating Korban Pesach in one room, and that will be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that you can have two groups even for one Korban Pesach, but that each person has to have only one place. He argues this would be Shimon, who says the opposite, that any one person can actually eat in two places, but they all have to be part of one group. Oh, let's see how they argue and where they derive it from. Mishnah says, "Shetei chaborot shehayu ochelin bebayit ehad, elu hofchin et penehem helach ve'ochelin, ve'elu hofchin et penehem helach ve'ochelin." Let's say you have within one house, within one room, you have two different groups. And so you want to show some kind of separation between them so they don't get mixed up. So what you do is that one group would face out one way and the other group would face away from that group. And since they're facing away from each other, then it's clear to everybody that they are in fact two different groups and they're not going to come to share with each other. It's okay to have one hot pot, the hot water pot in the middle, and that way they can share it, and the waiter will go back and forth and pour for them when they need. כשהשמש עומד למזוג, קופץ את פיו ומחזיר את פניו עד שמגיע אצל חבורתו ואוכל. The waiter, who himself is Jewish, he has to join in one of them. So let's say he joins the group on the right. So he can serve the people on the right. When he's going to the group on the left, he should close his mouth so that no one should mistake, or he shouldn't make a mistake himself and eat something. So if his mouth is closed, he can't eat anything with the left group. He can go there and serve them, but he'll eat only with the right group. Good. And furthermore, if you have a bride, someone that happened to get married just right before Pesach, and now they're eating Korban, the bride is eating Korban Pesach with everybody else. If for the sake of modesty, so you're not everybody staring at the bride, often the bride would turn her face away. And that is okay. Even though she's turning her face away from the rest of the group, it might look like, oh, she's making a different group. She's not joining our group because she's facing away, right? Because we said in the beginning that facing away from each other is one of the ways that you show you're a different group. But the kala can do that because she's not facing away to separate from the group, or rather because of modesty. Alrighty, so now the Gemara says, Matnitin Maneh, who is the author of this Mishnah? It has to be the Yehuda the Tanya. Al habatim asher yochelu oto bahem. Pasuk in Shemot says, you place the blood on the homes that they will eat it. So you see that oto is singular, that's one Korban Pesach, and yet there are many people eating and many rooms. So therefore, you can see that you can take one animal and split it into multiple groups. But then each group has to stick with whichever group that they chose. Right? You could have one Korban Pesach that's eaten with two groups. Let's say the room is too small and it can't fit everybody, or whatever reason. Now, since you joined in with that Korban Pesach, can it be that I can go from one and then join the other group and then come back to the first group? Sometimes we have this, if you have a lot of company, we can't fit on one table. You want to try to jump around to see your friends on the other table. No, you cannot, because you have to eat it in one room, in one house. And so therefore, even if it's the same animal, once you split it into two groups, you have to stick with that one group. You can't change to the other group. And that fits with the Mishnah. מכאן אמרו, השמש שאכל כזית בסד התנור, יפקח וממלא כרסו ממנו. And so based on this application is that the attendant, right, the chef, one person from the group was going to go and actually do the barbecuing. Let's say while he's doing the barbecuing, which would be more out in the field, he wants to taste it, and he tastes it, and then now he's stuck in that place. So if he's smart, he'll eat. If he ate a kezayit next to where that is, if he's smart, he'll fill up his stomach there, because when he brings it back to the room where everybody else is, he won't be able to eat anymore, right? Because the Yehuda says you can only eat in one place. If the rest of the group want to do him a favor, they feel bad, he's going to have to sit with them and not be able to eat, they can all come out to the place where they're doing the barbecue and sit around there, and that way the person who was doing the barbecuing can continue eating. So you see that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. You have to always be in one place. Rabbi Shimon omer al batim asher yochelu oto bahem melamed שהאוכל אוכל בשתי מקומות. יכול יהיה נאכל בשתי חבורות, תלמוד לומר בבית אחד יאכל. So Rabbi Shimon says the opposite, that this same pasuk means that you can eat it in two different places. Batim, right? This is plural places. So you can eat the same Korban Pesach and you can go here and there because it's the same Pesach. Can it be in two chaburot? He says no, right? You cannot separate into two separate groups. Bebayit echad ye'achel. It has to be all in one group. All right, so it's interesting because they're learning from the same two pisukim, opposite things. So b'maika mipalge, what's the essence of what's the root of their machloket? Yehuda sabar yeshem lamasoret. Rabbi Shimon sabar yeshem lamikra. We see this often where, because there's no vocalization in the Torah, so sometimes you can read it one way, but you can read the consonants in a different way than the nikudot that are passed down. So the one who says yeshem la masoret, which that's the Yehuda. So because you can actually read it yochal instead of ye'achel, right? B'bayit echad yochal, and in that case, it's an active verb going on the eater. Every individual, you have to eat it in one house. You can't go to another house. And so since it can be read yochal, he says yeshem la masoret, masoret meaning only the consonants, and he's going to reread the vowels as yochal. That's how the Yehuda derives it. But Rabbi Shimon says, no, we give preference of authority to the way the mikra, the way it's read. And since it's read ye'achel, it shall be eaten. That means by the whole group of people. They all will eat it together, but any one individual can move around if they're in two different spots. Now, an application of this is, let's say they're all sitting around and all of a sudden a partition, right, comes and separates them. According to the Yehuda, who says that you can separate it to two groups, that's okay, even though all of a sudden some mechisa was placed down the middle. Okay, so now there are two groups, that's permitted. But according to Rabbi Shimon, who says no, you cannot separate one group into two, then this is a problem. Then they cannot eat in that way with a mechisa down the middle. I guess they all have to come around or join together again. What about the opposite? Right, they were sitting around and there was a mechitza, and now the mechitza fell down. According to the Shimon, who says you can eat in two different places, that's still okay, right? Because even though these were two different rooms and now they're one, you're allowed to move around. But according to the Yehuda, who says you cannot move from one to the other, and these now were two different rooms and now they're the same room. So that means you moved around, so then you cannot eat because that's like a new location. Rav Kana was sitting and reviewing this lesson, and he took it as a simple matter, right? Okay, yeah, you can, if it goes up, it goes down. And while he's repeating this, Amar le Rav Asher Rav Kahana, right? This is so simple to you. You should be asking a question. Right? Just because you took away a partition or a partition was created there, is that really like two separate places or like two separate groups? Who said? I mean, even in the Mishnah, you could have two groups in one room, right? That are not facing each other. So it's really a question whether a partition that comes up or comes down actually creates two rooms or two groups. So teko, you're right. This is actually complicated and then it requires more discussion. All right, and now the last part of the Mishnah, Kala hofechet et paneha, a bride, when she's eating Korban Pesach, she may turn her face around in modesty, and even though she's still part of the group. My ta'ama, because she will be embarrassed. She's wearing nice jewelry and dress and everything, and so she's embarrassed of people staring at her. Rav Huna bered Rav Natan nikla lebed Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Amaru le mashemach. So here's a fun story. Rav Huna came to the home of Rav Nachman, and when he showed up, they said, "What's your name?" He said, my name is Rav Huna. Amru neteb mor apuria. Oh, please sit on the couch. Right? Most people sat on the floor. Only an important person, they would be put on the couch. Yeteb, so he sat. They offered him a cup of wine. He accepted it the first time, right? He didn't say no. He just accepted it right away. And he drank it in 2 gulps. And he did not turn around his face while he was drinking as in modesty, but drank it just right in front of everybody. That's the story. Now, after he did all that, they were wondering about his behavior. Some of his behavior was peculiar. Who does that? Who comes in and says, I am Rav Huna? He should be humble and just say, I am Huna. Right? Why'd you announce your name with your honorific? I said, that's my name. Right? Either maybe that was his name from youth, maybe that's part of his name, or it means that he received samicha, so he earned his title. So there's no problem with saying your title when you earned it. How come when they said, you go, you can sit on the couch, why did you sit? You should have said, not me, let someone else sit there. You should have refused a couple of times. It says you have to do anything that the host tells you to. You're in the host's home, and so it's his rules. So if the host tells you to sit here, you should always sit there. Chutz miseh, except if he tells you to leave. Okay, this is kind of funny, right? You have to do everything the host tells you to do unless he kicks you out. Then you don't listen and you stick around. Okay, I think this is meant as a joke. It's a fun aphorism. I have to use it next time I go to someone's house. But the words chutz miseh are actually in parentheses, and if we look at the manuscripts here, we see that it is found in the first printed edition. It is there. Someone decided to take it out, and it's only found in 2 manuscripts, not in most manuscripts. So probably it doesn't actually belong there. But someone added a joke or took away a joke from the story. All right. How come when they offered you a cup, you accepted the first time? No, you can't refuse. If a great person offers you something, you have to accept it. And so this was actually an honor to the host to refuse it. Only if a lower person gives you, then you can refuse it. Why did you eat it and drink the whole thing in 2 gulps? If you drink a whole cup of wine in 1 gulp, that's a guzzler. It's 2 is perfect, right in the middle. 3, that's haughty. That's like, taking little sips, like you're so pampered, you're so important. So 2 is right, is just right. Why didn't you turn your face away to be more polite while you're drinking, and not everybody has to watch you drinking? No, Mishnah says that a kala should turn her face, so she turns her face. Doesn't say anybody else turns their face when they're eating, so it's only her. Therefore, I didn't have to. So we see that just from common etiquette of a sage, we can learn so many proper polite ways of being a guest. All right, next story, another guest, Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yoseh ikla Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi Yoseh ben Lakonya. So now Rabbi Shimon is the guest. They gave him a cup of wine. He accepted it on the first offering, and he drank the whole thing in 1 gulp. So didn't you learn this halakha from this? Remember that story before? From the general halakha that's like a guzzler. Not nice to drink a whole thing in one gulp. Amar lehu la ameri bechosecha katan ve'encha matok uchrisi rechaba. So no, this does not apply in this case because the cup that you gave me is very small, right? So that's a bit of an insult. So what if I'm going to drink this little cup and right? It's only 1. And also your wine is so sweet, so it's delicious, and I have a wide stomach. He was known to be a big guy. So, I'm a big guy. This is like a small amount for me. So that's why this does not apply to me. I drank the whole thing in one go. אמר רבונה בני חבורה נכנסין בשלושה ויוצאין אפילו באחד. Okay, now back to Korban Pesach, or this might apply all year round, that when you're having a meal and you have someone that's waiting on you, so the people, this sounds like Korban Pesach, Bnei Chabura, they should come when with 3 people. In other words, when there's just 1 or 2 people there, the waiter doesn't have to start serving them. When there's 3 people there, then the waiter should start serving. It's like when you go to a restaurant, right? You with 2 people and you're waiting for the rest of the party to come. You shouldn't bother the waiter to bring you hors d'oeuvres and stuff before everybody else comes, and he has to do more work. So he doesn't have to start working until there's 3 people there. And when they leave, they could leave one at a time, when they're done. Even though there's going to be more people and they're leaving each at a different time, and the waiter has to serve whoever is left, that's okay. Says, that's true only if they come around the time that people that usually start the meal. You shouldn't come very early or very late. There's a window of time that people usually show up for a meal. So when you show up, then 3 or more, he should start serving them. And he should also know about them. In other words, the waiter should have some idea. He should know who's coming and when they're coming so that he can prepare properly. And lastly, Amar Ravina, v'notnin sechar damim, v'sarich acharon losif damim, the people that stay late, right, they should add an extra tip for the waiter, because he had to do some extra work for him. And the last person that leaves has to give the majority of the tip. All right, we know this trick also, right? Don't be the last to leave the restaurant, then you're saddled with the tip. But anyway, the halacha is not so that the last person does not have to give any more than the rest of the people. After all, everybody benefited from the waiter, and that's the end of the meal and the end of the perek. Hadran alach kesad solin chazakim uberuchim.